chickies, and welcome to the Fully Booked Penguin channel. I am Hannah, and today we are recapping and reviewing all the books I read in October. I read so many books through October that it's kind of insane. Near the end of the month, I was even just binging a romance series. I was just like, you know what, I have nothing much. Well, I had tons of books on my TBR, but I was like, I need something filler. So I just read tons of books that weren't even on my TBR. Now, during the month of October, I actually participated in the Journey Through the Bible readathon. So I have two vlogs up, the Expedition 1 and Expedition 2 on the channel. So if you want to check them out, they go more into those books that I read. Like, I do little updates on my reading and thoughts as I read them. So I would go check them out for more in-depth thoughts and reviews. I have so many that I don't know whether I'll really go into full details, full reviews, but my Goodreads and my videos have more thoughts. But I will go through and say my positive points or negative points, and I'll try and be more concise rather than rattle on for 12 years. I had a sort of up and down month in regards to what my thoughts were on the books. Okay, so the first book we are reviewing today is Of Tides and Treason, which is the third book in the Casmian Chronicles by Constance Lopez. This is a YA young adult fantasy romance, and it is following a new couple or new pairing in the series. We were introduced to the male character, who is Rue. He is actually sort of the bad guy prince from the previous book. And then we are also following Melly, who we haven't seen before, but she is a mage who has an affinity with animals. So she doesn't really have magic per se, but she just wins over the animals so quickly. And that's her sort of talent. She doesn't consider herself really useful as a mage, though. Now, one of the main tropes in this is enemies to lovers, and if you've been following the channel, you know that I tend to dislike enemies to lovers. It's just not my vibe. So the guy in this, Rue, is entirely unlikable. Like, Constance does a great job of making him one of the most hateable characters for about 70% of the book. Unfortunately, because he is so unlikable, the girl liking him, Melly liking him, feels a little bit Stockholmish because she is sort of captured. She has no other choice if she wants her little animals to survive, or her to survive. This whole thing is to work with Rue to try and heal the land, because the land is in disarray, everything's dying. That's sort of the location we are in. And unfortunately, Rue is horrible. Melly is a sweet bean, and for some reason, even though Rue does like the bare minimum of what you would think is just human decency, and she's like, oh my goodness, Rue, you are so good. And I'm like, but is he though? Or is it just, is it just decency? How you should treat other people? So unfortunately, it did kind of annoy me throughout that, because she kept saying, oh, he's so good. Like, I know he's on the bad side, but he's actually really nice. And I'm like, where is the niceness? He doesn't let you get killed, but maybe that's because you have, resources that they need in order for the country not to implode. He did manage to crawl his way back through the final bit, but it was a tough time for me to even consider the romance. So the romance felt flat. So I guess the negatives were the romance felt Stockholmish and unbelievable. I understood that Rue was meant to be sort of this character you didn't like, because he was doing things that you shouldn't like. But I despised that man for most of it. And the positives are the world was interesting. Like the mystery aspect and putting things together and sort of the kingdom happenings, that was interesting. That was really what I liked about the book. I could have foregone the romance, to be honest. I flew through it. I read it in a day. So it wasn't bad. It was just, there was a few points that just really, but I feel like that was the point, but also the romance wasn't there. So I won't step off the beaten path and change my rating, but I'm not sure it's quite a 4. Maybe that was my feeling at the time, but having passed that, the feelings are more of, oh, what a ride, rather than, oh, I really enjoyed this. But I did give that a rating of 4 stars. So yes, I guess I enjoyed myself, but it was also slightly frustrating. I needed a few pauses to gather my frustrations. But you can see that in the vlog. Okay, so the next book we have is Lout of Count's Family, volume or novel number 3. And this is by Yu Rohan. And this book is a Korean light novel, and it's young adult, fantasy, dragons. It's an isekai, which means real person enters a fictional book land. And this series follows, obviously, Kale Hennetis, who is the eldest son of a count's family. He is a lout. He drinks and gambles and does all that. But then he is possessed by this real world person who enters the world, and he knows, because this world is a book series, he's read 5 volumes, so he knows that Kale has his comeuppance when he meets the main character, and he gets beat up. So, in order to avoid being beat up, the new Kale starts gathering allies and preventing wars and all that, while trying to live his most rich, lazy life that he could possibly do. Because in his head, he is the most selfish being on earth, but not really. He likes to think he is. He likes to consider the possibility that he is the most selfish, arrogant lout around. But everyone around him falls in love because he is ultimately the most caring, sort of self-sacrificing, but not really. To them, they think it is, but to him, he's like, I've got all this protection, so it doesn't really kill me at all, because he hates being hurt. Anyway, so this is volume 3. Obviously, we're following a whole new range of adventures. It goes really quickly through different arcs. You never have time where you're like, oh, this is a bit draggy, because we just flying through. And all the characters are lovable. I love the little dragon that he collects, because the dragon loves and adores him, even though the dragon calls him a puny human. And it is just, I rant and rave about this series because I love it so much. So, of course, I gave this book a 5 stars. The positives were the characters. The negatives were none. They were none. 10 out of 10 series. I'm trying to convert my brother into reading this series. I gave him the first book, so I'll report back, but I'm trying to get more people to read this series because it's just so much fun. None of the anxiety, all of the fun vibes. So there is book 3 of Lout of Count's Family. My love. Okay, next up we have Persuasion by Jane Austen. This is obviously a classical fiction, literary fiction, historical fiction, romance. And this follows Anne, who, when she was younger, was persuaded to turn down the proposal of a man she was very much fond of. And now it's been many years, and she is now an old maid at 27 years old. She's quite the old maid, far beyond marrying prospects, so you know how it is. And her family is such a comical cast of just weirdness. It truly is. And then, of course, as she goes about observing the happenstances of her, gentry father and her sisters and their neighbours, she comes across Captain Wentworth, her old flame, who might be a current flame too. I really loved following Anne, our main female lead, because she doesn't hold a grudge. She's got all these things, and really, Wentworth is kind of mean in a backhanded way, without knowing the full thoughts of his supposedly beloved. He's got the grudge. He's kind of holding it against her, without speaking to her again and kind of getting her thoughts on the matter. And she does regret what she did, but she also doesn't let her regret dictate her current perspective on events and on Wentworth and things. She doesn't hold on to it. And while not letting it get her down, she still is loyal to her first love. She hasn't moved on. She hasn't found anyone else. It's not like she's looking at other men and being like, ooh, is that a possibility? Because she's kind of still in love. And so her reflections and grace in the face of all this stuff, and she's so understanding of even Wentworth because she does know him. She's kind of studying his less great moments, and she's like, I understand why he's doing that. And if he could just pull his head in, it would make his life better. But she can't say anything because he's not technically saying stuff to her. But it is a comical thing for most everyone else, and then I just love Anne's sort of observing what Wentworth is going through and subjecting himself to, pretty much. And yeah, I don't get the whole Wentworth love, to be honest. Even his letter near the end, I'm like, it's a letter. Obviously Anne is won over because she's already in love with him, but as an outsider, I'm like, it's just a letter, man. I realize I'm saying man a lot. Anyway, so I don't get the Wentworth love, but I still love the book because of Anne. And so I gave Persuasion by Jane Austen a 5 stars. So a really good couple of books we did. I love. I just enjoy it. I do. I agree. Okay, so next up we have Disney's Twisted-Wonderland. And it is volume 1 of Book of Heart Labure by, I'm gonna butcher these names, Yana Toboso, Wakana Hazuki, and Samaya Kawano. And this is obviously a young adult fantasy manga. So this is an introduction to the series. Other than loving our main character, who is a judo student and really down to earth, because he is, obviously there's an upcoming tournament, and unfortunately on his way home one day, he gets run over or picked up by a carriage and ends up in this magical world where everyone has magic. And it's like an academy or college? You know when you have words that you know and then you're like, is that a word though? Because it suddenly sounds really strange, but I think it is college. University situation that is magical, and people with magic are accepted. And he's like, well, I don't know why I'm here, because I got no magic. And they're like, oh, impossible, a person with no magic, what are you talking about? And then they test him and they're like, it appears he has no magic. And they ask the mirror to send him home, and the mirror's like, he doesn't belong anywhere. Which I find very suspicious, but anyway. So, judo player becomes the janitor for the school. And there's all the manner of, like, this bloke here on the cover is the Queen of Hearts warden. But he's really annoying. So a lot of the characters I don't even like. There is a magical cat in here as well who actually wants to be part of the school, keeps getting rejected. And he's like, but I'm magical! And judo player's like, I would happily switch with you, but the school doesn't want that, so whoops. And so now they're on different adventures and whatever. But this is kind of just an introduction to the world and a few of the characters. I'm sure there's a whole cast that we still have to meet. As I say, I didn't really connect to anything or, fangirl over any moments. I was just interested to see a little ordinary judo player help him out. But unfortunately, yeah, because it's the first volume, you don't really get much out of it. So I did give this one 3.5 stars. I will continue the series and see if I get more attached, more interested in the overarching tale. That is a review for that little one. Villains Are Destined to Die, Volume 4. This is a manhwa, i.e. graphic novel, and it is a fantasy romance isekai. Kwon Gyo-il is the original author, and then Soo-ol is the artist. And I will start off by saying the artwork in this is gorgeous. It's wonderful. In this, we follow a girl who has grown up in a kind of horrible family, and she's finally sort of free of them. She's brushed the dirt off her feet, and she, as part of her fun, she plays a romance game in which you, first of all, can play as the heroine who can, woo these different characters, or you can enter the hard mode as the villainess, Penelope. And unfortunately, there is a lot of death routes in Penelope's playthrough. Our main girl hasn't even won the game because she keeps dying. But unfortunately, our girl does wake up as Penelope, and she is trying to avoid death. Now, the whole thing is that the villainess, Penelope, is part of this Duke's family, but she's the fake daughter. She's like a ring-in replacement for the real daughter who hasn't been found. They lost her or whatever, and so they bring in Penelope as a sort of stand-in. And unfortunately, her family do not treat her the best, which is very reminiscent of the, real-world girls' family. And so they bully her and all that sort of stuff. Then there is a mage, and there is a sort of servant / knight, and then there is the crown prince, Callisto. They're sort of the main people surrounding Penelope, and pretty much all of them bring death. So she hates this world. Obviously, she's like, I am going to die. I want to go home. I just escaped my abusive family, and now I wake up in a game where the family is abusive. Let me out of here, please. But in order to escape, of course, she has to win the game. That's her whole thing, is she has to raise affinity with one of the targets and escape. However, things don't really go to plan. In this volume, we get a lot of Penelope with the Crown Prince Callisto. And for those who follow with me, we are Callisto fans. And we love a blonde-haired male lead. And so Callisto is perfect. Is he bloodthirsty? Does he kill all the assassins? Yes, because they're after him. They're trying to kill him, so he just retaliates. And because he thinks that everyone is trying to kill him, much like the girl, he is a bit standoffish and really savage. He's actually kind of sweet on our girl because she's a little bit weird. And he's like, hey, hello. So they spend a lot of time together in this one, which I absolutely love, because when they're together, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like I can finally breathe and let the anxiety just leave me, because the rest of the time we are in anxiety mode. The Duke, I feel he's a little misunderstood, but he also, I mean, because of Penelope's actions, he has neglected her a lot. And obviously we are mad at him, but it's a forgivable level of mad. Then we have the younger brother, Reynold, and he bullies Penelope so much. But I also feel like he is close to like repentance, and he can see where he may have gone wrong as a kid and even as an adult, and he's trying to win her over again. Then we get to Derek, who's the older brother, and honestly, Derek can go jump in a lake. Derek is the most infuriating figure in this entire series. Despise him. Anyway, in this book, he has just horrible. And I do not see it getting better in the next volume. The other two, the Knight and the Mage, don't really show up. So we don't really have much thoughts on them in this volume. But I was so happy to see Penelope and the Crown Prince spending time together that I really loved it. I enjoyed it so much. The biggest positive was Penelope and the Crown Prince together, and the negative was Derek. Go jump in a lake. Disappear. Please. So for Villains Are Destined to Die, Volume 4, I gave it a 4.5. And I am eager to read the next volume, because this one kind of left off on a cliffhanger. We were just like, okay. I haven't written a review for this one, so I've just got to go off the top of my head. So, next up we have From Billabong to London by Mary Grant Bruce. I did read this in my second expedition vlog. Go there for more in-depth thoughts. This is a historical fiction. It's about Australians. It was written a long time ago. In this one, we are near the beginning of the First World War, and so there is a lot of consignment and a lot of people signing up to go to the war, which is a different word from consignment, but I can't remember it. And this is following the family of Nora. So her father, and then her brother Jim, and then a family friend who is lives with them most of the time, who is Wally. They, of course, are on the father's station, which he owns and runs with sheep and cattle. But, of course, news of the war is spreading. You know, the Germans' treatment of the Belgians is in this. So the young lads, Jim and Wally, are very ready to go and fight in the war. In order to handle some business, Nora's father also needs to go to London, and Wally is a little too young to sign up in Australia, but in England, the age you can, enlist. So in England, the age to enlist is much younger. It was like 15 or 16, whereas in Australia, I think it was 18. And so Wally is 17. He wants to go fight. And so they decide they'll all go to London together, and then the boys will enlist in England. So this is kind of following the journey from their station and then via ship to England. And they have a few adventures with a few spies and things on board and warships and stuff happening. So there is a lot of intrigue and adventures happening in this. The only negative I have is because of the time of this and the author. I think they do change it in later editions, but in this one it still includes a lot of racist commentary. You don't want to pretend that wasn't a part of our history and what people thought back then, and they thought that was normal to, have those opinions or those thoughts about different races. But unfortunately, it's not pleasant to read about. Otherwise, the anxiety over war stuff, I've bawled my little eyes out because it's the boys enlisting and it's the father's thoughts about sending off his son and all these other things. They're half excited, like the lads are excited to go and protect the innocents and stuff, and while the family back home are like, there is a high possibility that they won't come back. I don't do well with war novels because while it's fiction, that these are experiences of real people. So it's real in that sense. So I love the family aspect of the Australian sort of character. But yeah, the racist commentary is just a little bit on the nose. But also it is an accurate depiction of the time. I think I have to take a star off just for the more questionable moments in it. But otherwise I give it 4 stars. I'm not looking forward to the next 2 books because I know they are really centered in with the boys in the war, and I'm just going to be bawling my eyes out the whole time. But this was a lead into it, so I did cry, and I know there will be more tears when coming through this series. So this was book 4 of the series, and I am going to continue reading it and crying my eyes out. Next up we have City of Serpents, which is book 4 of the Secrets of Ormdale series by Christina Bear. This is a young adult historical fantasy. It's got dragons, but it is set in England. I will say this book felt a lot like a filler episode because stuff happened, but it didn't really get them anywhere. And so this follows Edith. She's the daughter of a pastor, and her cousins run this abbey, but in the first book she finds out that this abbey may have many, many secrets, one of which maybe dragons. It's a bit of spoiler for the series, so I don't know whether I can say much. But in this one, she's trying to find a antidote for dragon venom. She's trying to make it. She is a certain kind of person that may be able to help with the antidote without too much spoilers. And so she goes and hunts down this mad scientist who can help them create an antidote. Unfortunately, he is a mad scientist and may have wicked schemes of his own, which you kind of know from the get-go because everyone is telling our girl, be careful around this guy, he is evil. And what does our girl do? She's like, oh, I'm like, after all your trials and stuff from the previous book, why are you still not getting it through your head that you just need to be a bit more careful? I still enjoyed my time, but it was, yeah, you felt like you've got nowhere, pretty much. They've really only picked up a few more people. Now that I think about it, I don't think they've learnt much at all other than our girl has finally decided that going off after strange scientists isn't a good idea. Oh, there's also a lot of social politic, commentary in this one about suffragettes and sort of the treatment of immigrants and women, which of course, I agree with most of it. At first I was like, well, why are we getting all this random social commentary on it? It did feed in later on in the book, but it did mean that the pace of the book felt dragged a bit because you're just getting, opinion dumped at certain points. So it was still interesting in its own ways. It had good bits and sort of less interesting bits, but it was probably my least favourite of the series so far. But it does bring us to the next book, which is the final. It's like the finale, so that's why I call it a bit of a filler. It was more that the unwise decisions of our main girl, Edith, caught up with her during the book, and then she solved some of them, or got out of them with the help of friends. So I gave it a 3.5. As I say, it's not my favourite of the series, and I'm more excited to get into the final book. Well, there's a certain big plot point that she solved none of throughout this book, and that was sort of why she set out at the start of this book to achieve, and she did not achieve anything towards it. So I was like, please. Yeah, 3.5 for City of Serpents by Christina Bear. The next novel I read was Nancy Drew, The Bungalow Mystery. This is book 3 in the Nancy Drew Mystery Stories series. And the Nancy Drew series is written, well, by a host of authors, but they all write under the name Carolyn Keene. And in this we are following Nancy as she runs into a new friend, but the new friend is wrapped up in a plot of false identities and stolen fortunes and that sort of thing, and bank heists that aren't really heists, they're more, when they siphon off money that's not theirs. Anyway, stealing people's money and bonds and that sort of thing. I can't think of the word right now. Keep in mind, this is the 8th book I'm reviewing, so embezzlement, I think. Like an embezzlement pot. It's probably still the wrong word, but we're going with it. And so, yeah, Nancy's pretty much just helping out a friend. There's, people pretending to be people they're not. The Nancy Drew series is like a middle grade mystery, so there's nothing too difficult to understand. It's pretty straightforward. This series has a very sort of nostalgic feel to it. I think adult readers who aren't just interested in Nancy Drew might be like, what? Why would you read this series? Like, it's nothing amazing. But I'm like, that's because all the adult readers reading them now read them as kids, and now we're coming back to them because we need to be fed nostalgia in a world that is so utterly changed. And we're like, let me just relive a bit of my childhood because I'm old. I'm so flippin' old right now. But I just love the series. It's pretty straightforward, as I say. I'm nothing too negative about it because it is a middle grade. I don't have any huge complaints about it. I think maybe Nancy does trespass in this book, but technically she's trespassing on the home of, like, people that are trespassing. So she's trespassing to catch trespassers. Personally, this isn't a 5-star book, but as a kid, it may have been a 5-star book. I am an adult, so I feel like should I judge it upon what young me would be, because the people coming to read these books are probably young as well. Like, the parents are like looking at reviews saying, do people like this for my child? And then all the adults are like, I love this series. Or, this series was good, 3 stars. And the parents like, well, if it was that good, why is it 3? If you're an adult and you want to read this to your young teenager, your middle grader, absolutely. Nothing horrible in it. As I say, there's embezzlement and crime happening. So maybe it's a conversation point. But for me personally, it's probably a 4. I don't know what to do with middle grade books. I'm so sorry. So the next one we are reviewing is Skip Beat, and this is by Yoshiki Nakamura. And this is actually 3 volumes in one. So we have volume 19, 20, and 21. And this is probably a young adult manga. I don't know, it's more contemporary girls fiction, probably, is what it would probably be classed as. This series follows Kyoko, who joins the acting business to gain revenge on her childhood friend who took advantage of her monetary work because she was working so many jobs to try and finance his singing career, or at least upkeep this apartment that he ended up rarely being at, and he sort of broke her heart. So she joins the acting business, and there she runs into Ren Suruga, who is a well-known actor, and he doesn't appreciate that she's joined the business for revenge. But they may have a past connection that Kyoko doesn't know about at this point, but Ren definitely does. And they kind of build this friendship and relationship from there, and there's a whole heap of other side characters that come in for Kyoko's found family, because her own one, let's just say, is a little bit dysfunctional. But Kyoko also finds out that she actually loves acting just because it gives her a creative outlet, and she's actually really good at it. She's a little bit of a natural. So it's just a lot of fun, a lot of moments, and she's a little button of sunshine, but she doesn't believe in love anymore because of this heartbreak betrayal. So volume 19, we are wrapping up an arc between a foreign actor who has worked in Japan before, but has come back just for a short period for an interview or something, and Kyoko is assigned to him as a chef cook because she's really good at cooking, and in her acting company she's part of the Love Me section, which is a section for people who need to learn how to love and be loved, because of course she and another girl in the company, they don't believe in it. They're like, oh, love is stupid. So the president wants to fix that attitude, and so part of this task is part of the Love Me section, and she's trying to help out Ku. But Ku is purposely riling her up because of a secret plot he has that might have to do with Ren. Kyoko wins him over, and Ku actually becomes almost like a father figure to Kyoko during the time. And so this is sort of wrapping that up as he gives advice and sort of meets up with somebody for the first time in a long time. And I just gotta say, the final little bit of volume 19 made me tear up because I was like, so sweet and so sad and a little heart. Then we have a volume 20, which kind of just follows a party for the young granddaughter of the president of the company that Kyoko is part of. And Kyoko is good friends with this little girl, and so they throw a party, not for her birthday because she has trauma around her birthday, but as a thank you to all their friends and family. And it's just a cute moment with found family. It's just a squishy moment, a little break from the rest of the stuff happening, and just highlighting Kyoko's sort of nature of wanting to help So she knows how to love, she just doesn't believe in romantic love. I don't think she thinks that's a good thing anymore, but she's really like loyal and loving to friends and her found family. So that's all that one is. And then volume 21, we get back into Kyoko's problem of creating a character for a bully role, because she has previously played this character Mio, who's very dark, sort of bully figure. The director is such, I hate the director so much, because he's like, don't be Mio. I don't want to see you as this Mio. But also, in the moments where you're bullying them, can you just be Mio? That's all I want. I just want Mio. And she's like, well, what the heck does that mean? And I'm like, I'm with you, girl. Anyway, so she's trying to create the character for her so she can love and play this character, because she really becomes the role. But she's getting mixed signals, and this evil girl in the company who's trying to work against her. Our Kyoko is really having a baffling time of it, but she may come to a slight idea moment. The little light bulb goes off, and she seeks out the help of Ren for the next arc of her journey. So those are the 3 volumes of Skip Beat we got through. I love this series. It's always going to be a 5-star, pretty much. The found family, our main girl, is such a button, such a unique female character. She's not like, I think in a lot of manga you get like the ditzy female lead, and she's not ditzy. She is so cool and yet so lovable and bright. But also she has her darker side, and her real talent in acting definitely helps showcase different sides to her as well. And I love all the found family and the way they care for her. That is Skip Beat. Next up we have A Way Through the Sea by Robert Elmer. This is the first book in the Young Underground series. This is a middle grade Christian historical fiction. And this is set during World War II in Denmark, where the Germans have sort of occupied Denmark, and Sweden is across the channel, and it follows these twin siblings and their best friend who is a Jew. There's different aspects, because you've got them and their pigeons that they're training to fly back home and do little pigeon races, very kid-like. And then we have the parents trying to make it as a normal a childhood as they possibly can, while this threat and this presence is very much still felt. It also covers when the Germans are trying to round up all the Jews to send them to concentration camps or kill them, and the way the Denmark people actually banded together to let the Jews escape to Sweden, which is across the way. I found it really good. I did enjoy the little touches of faith elements. It wasn't like wacky or over the head, but our main character Peter is intrigued, and because of what's happening, he's feeling the anxiousness, and he is consulting his uncle, who is also a Christian, and sort of they have these little discussions about church and what faith really is, and I thought it was really nicely handled. Are the adventures a little far-fetched for 11-year-olds to be achieving? Maybe. But I also think it showcases that the children in the war eras, they did need to show more maturity than, say, an 11-year-old usually would. They had to conduct themselves in a certain way. They had certain fears that they had to, follow and hide from. And so I think in that aspect it was still believable. But when you think about an 11-year-old, like one of today's 11-year-olds, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I don't even think that when I see a kid walking down the street alone, I'm like, where are your parents? Where is they? I really enjoyed this one. I gave it a 5 stars. And yeah, I think it's a good book for Christian middle graders to read, especially when it showcases a bit of, the war history and then, Christian faith themes as well. The next book on the list is actually on DNF, and it is A Fragile Enchantment by Alison Saft. This is meant to be a young adult fantasy romance. I personally wouldn't put it in the young adult category, and I will go into that in a second. So in this we are following Neve, who is a seamstress, but she can put magic into her clothes or emotions, sort of feelings or certain attributes into the clothes she sews, and she is tasked with making the sort of outfits for a neighboring kingdom's prince, because he's getting married. A wedding wardrobe. So it's got like Regency, medieval-y type vibes to it. I did reach the 22% mark before I DNF'd. I tried to make it 20% through a book even if I'm hating it. And unfortunately, this book, it does have a lot of sexual themes and includes an explicit scene closer to the end as well. And there's also a lot of swearing and a lot of language insinuating more adult themes, let's put it that way. What got me on top of all that was the emotional range of all these characters. Everyone just needed a bit of emotional regulation, probably some therapy. Everything is so reactional. Like, something will be said and they'll be like either angry or sad or, you know, really extremes of emotion from like little sentences. None of them sort of dwell on anything. They're like, whip, 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 whip. And even Neve, our main character, she admits that she cries when she's stressed or angry or sad. She says, I just cry. I don't, probably because I don't relate to just snap crying when you're stressed or angry. I'm like, if I cried every time I was stressed or like upset, even sad, I would never stop crying, to be honest. No, thankfully I have the Lord, so I'm not always that way, but it was just too much. It was too much going on. I was just like, please act a little bit more mature. I liked the premise because it was like this seamstress, bit of mystery, bit of intrigue. So I was interested by that. Unfortunately, the drama of every moment was drama. And I'm like, oh, please, can we just not have the drama at every turn? It obviously wasn't my kind of book, even though the premise sounded intriguing. And yeah, it definitely is not YA. I would not suggest this book for anyone who is of the no spice genre or prefers a bit of, I don't know, it's something that isn't physical or ooh la la lust based. Probably not the book for you. That was a DNF for A Fragile Enchantment by Alison Saft. Now, unfortunately, the next book I read was also a DNF, and that was A Girl's Guide to the Outback by Jessica Kate. This is a contemporary Christian fiction. It's set part in the US and part in Australia, Queensland, Australia. It felt like a chore reading this. So I did DNF it technically at the 22% mark, same percentage as the other one, but I did skip forward and read most of the ending. It just was not the book for me, clearly, which was really disappointing because it's meant to be a Christian fiction, and let me just say, there was not much I could agree with, even on the Christian point. So let's dive into this one, shall we? I think the unfortunate part was it started off, I didn't even get many pages in. I got to page 5 and I already thought, am I going to DNF this book? And that was, I will share a little quote with you. Page 5. It's describing the main male character who is dressed in a Captain America costume and he is carrying a 2-year-old kid. Kimberly's uterus did a backflip of approval. First of all, have no clue what the heck that even means. That sounds entirely uncomfortable and it would be a lot of pain as a girl who experiences a lot of pain. I've got to say, that sounds excruciating. I had to consult my mother because I am a single woman of no fortune and no prospects. I did consult my mother. I was like, Mother, I need to consult you about something for my own thing because I've seen this in multiple books and I want to know if this is a real thing. And so I read it to her and she was like, look, there is certain things that happen. We don't really have discussions like this. So my mother was like, well, no. That specific description? No, it doesn't. I was like, thank you. That's all I really needed to know. I just needed to be backed up, but that is not a real thing that happens because that sounds entirely uncomfortable. Anyway, I'm probably going too far into detail. But the other part, page 7, let me read this quote to you. Sam's eyes, the colour of fudge sauce, or her foster dog's poop, depending on her mood, focused on her face. I'm sorry, what? Was that really necessary? That seems unclassy, really unclassy. You get those vibes straight away, and what it is actually about. So this follows Kimberly, who is like, I don't know, the secretary, the organizer, some office role of a ministry group that works with children. And Sam, the male main character, is a youth pastor who technically has no qualifications to be a youth pastor. He kind of just founded this organization with apparently no experience, no qualifications. So I'm like, you do know there's laws around all that working with children and stuff, right? Well, at least in Australia, there are very strict laws in regards to all that. So I'm not sure how that works, but anyway. So they're working together at this ministry. However, Sam's family is struggling with their farm back home. He's feeling guilty about that because him and his father lost a lot of money before. Anyway, and so he's like, he doesn't agree with the girl's new proposal to open a new place as like an outreach center. And so he's like, oh, the board is about to agree with her. Well, I may as well go home and help out my family instead. I quit. I'm moving out. I'm gone. And so off he goes. And the girl is left bewildered. Things happen. And she decides she's also going to go to Australia to help them out. And also try and win back Sam back to the ministry. That's the rough gist. The main character's antagonistic relationship stems from Sam's assuming stuff about Kimberly, apparently without ever talking to her or asking her about the subjects or her motivations, thoughts, etc. So he hates, or like he despises her because he has all these ideas of what she is, that she's like this conniving, she's only in it for the business, like the money or something, and that she really, as soon as she's achieved this thing, she'll abandon them and go on to bigger, better career prospects. In actual fact, if he even bothered to speak to her, he would know that that isn't the case. In fact, she's turning down big jobs because she is really dedicated to the ministry. But does this man even bother to ask her or consult her or even have a scary golf conversation? No. No, he just runs on his assumptions and that's it. That struck home because I have a whole lot of people assume things about me and call me boring without ever speaking to me. I'm like, I find myself very amusing if you bothered to even speak, like these people haven't even spoken to me. And they assume things. Assume I have thoughts on things and they've never asked me, and my thoughts are definitely not along the way they think they are. Maybe speak, maybe communicate. Anyway, so that may have triggered me a little bit. Just a little bit. Oh, also, female main character, the Chucks had brownies in the bin. And yes, they were sugar-free, but the moment something happened, she's like, well, I chucked these perfectly good brownies in the bin. The nerve. Oh, also, the Christian organization, they seem to act as if Sam is the only possible candidate for the ministry. Okay, I'll just read it. Wildfire think Sam is the only person on earth who can fill the role. I think that points to a much sadder problem in the church/organization. Not gonna lie. Plus, they aren't there to be worked to death because they mention what the role this chaplain or youth pastor needs to fulfill. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you trying to kill this person? So like maybe a bit of compassion. Maybe a little bit of, maybe don't drown your little people in all this work. It happens a lot in the church. Anyway, I was like, wow. Raise some people up, encourage those with passion, encourage others, be there, support others to rise up. Don't just be like, well, Sam's the only one in the entire earth that can fulfill this role. So I did skip roughly like 200 up the upper 200s towards the end to try and figure out if it even ended okay. It didn't. It was, you could jump in after all that time and you were pretty much in the same spot. You could pick up what happened all the way through. You're like, okay, yep, I'm on top of everything. The ending was just so dumb. And Sam's mother, just the whole family, just not good. Even the sister had been leading this man along for no apparent reason, and everyone was so unlikable. Like, Kimberly, I felt, was the lesser evil. She wasn't great. The faith content appeared only when they wanted to talk about this ministry, but they had no praying about stuff, no consulting the Lord when it came to these big decisions. Just nothing about it. And I'm like, why is this so? The faith content in this, the romance, the overall themes, no growth is had. I kind of just wanted, to be honest, there may be a runaway scene, and I was like, please just keep going. Do not stop. But did that happen? No. Flee to the Lord. But there was no fleeing. There was only going back. The pillar of salt. I'm just saying. There was a lot of issues, a lot more that I haven't spoken on. But I feel like I've ranted long enough, so we're going to stop there. We're going to stop there. Thank you. Okay, finally we end on a 4-book series that I read all of, and that is the Improper Agreement series by Audra Wells. I have previously read A Beguiled Gentleman, by Audra Wells, and it was a 4.5. There were a few things that were a bit silly, but overall, I really enjoyed the book. It is a No Spice Regency romance series. And we start off the series with an Improper Agreement. And in this one, we are following Clara, who has missed all the marriage marts, or like the marriage scene, the social seasons, because she was looking after her mother, who was sick and then has now passed away, with her father. Anyway, so they've come to London at last, and obviously she needs to find her husband. And then we also follow, what's his name? Wesley, who has his eyes set on a marriage partner, but he's really just in it for the money. He's like, I need a good marriage prospect. We're gonna get married. Who cares about love? Don't need it. And he's kind of very solemn, but also playful. I don't know, he's a weird one. They say he's like the recluse or like the offsider, but then he seems to be a real flirt. A flirt, but not really. So he has his eyes set on another woman. However, certain things happen and they have a run-in, like a meeting, which goes against every proprietal societal norm and very frowned upon, but because it's only the two of them, they are managed to avoid anyone else knowing about it. But very first chapter, there may be a kiss in a maze. And a bit of a mistaken identity there, but then they start insulting each other and it all goes from there. Now, this one did have a few manuscript errors, but I went into it expecting just like a goofy time. I wasn't taking it seriously. I didn't think it was one of those women's fictions where you're really meant to be impacted by the story. This is meant to be a Regency-styled, almost romantic comedy. This isn't anything serious. For all of this series, I did see some reviews saying, well, they wouldn't have used that language back then, and I don't care. It's a fictional land in my head. I don't tend to read some of these Regency romances and think, okay, I am in England right now. I make up an alternate universe England, really. That's really what goes on in my head. And so even if they're using language that doesn't fit with the era, I don't really care, to be honest. Anyway, so keep that in mind. So you have your normal Regency dramas, your little propriety moments. And in this one, they're having a competition to try and win over the best person. But our girl kind of gives up. She doesn't really care about the competition after a certain point. She never really actively pursues anyone. She does try and step in and sort of deter Wesley's chances, but even then she doesn't really. She just lets things happen, and unfortunately Wesley thinks she's disturbing the peace, but she's really not. I must admit, Wesley was not the likable kind of male lead. He tries to take revenge for her telling bad things to the girl he's pursuing, but the girl he's pursuing, she never got told anything. That was her own actions that led him to believe that the main girl had said something, but that wasn't the case. He is such a jerk. Honestly, he's kind of happy when our poor lass is ill. Like, I know there's wish ill upon someone, and then there's I actively go out of my way to laugh at them when literal illness falls upon her because of a carriage ride. Now, he does rectify the situation, and from the moment he starts caring about her, he does, fortunately, take that into consideration when they're going places. He covers for this sickness that she has. So I ended up giving it a 4 stars only because I felt a star needed to be taken away for his jerk actions, and I did want more groveling. I wanted him to grovel more and apologize for his actions, but because the girl was already in love with him, it does happen a lot in romance where I'm waiting for more groveling and the girl is already in love with him, so she doesn't need much groveling to accept him back, and I'm there like, girl, increase your standards just a little bit because I need to see him apologize just a few more times. Just a little more, please. But yeah, overall it was just, I just didn't take it too seriously, so I gave it a 4 stars. There were things that weren't wrapped up, but I just figured they'd be wrapped up in the series. Which leads us to the next book, which was An Improper Gentleman. And in this one we follow Archie, who is the flirt of society. Only is he, because he doesn't go around. He feels quite fine with just smooching the odd lady. When they're both into it, he'll be like, let's sneak off and have a little pash. He never goes any further, but he is, yes, the flirt of society. And he meets Bridget, who is the best friend of the first main girl. And she, unfortunately, was treated badly by another man and expected a proposal that never happened. So she is completely off men. She thinks they're all, so-and-sos. And so Archie has to try and win her over, but all his usual flirtations, just something always goes wrong. And he's like, oh my goodness, I'm trying to win her over and actually win this woman over, and everything goes wrong. I just make a complete fool of myself. And so I actually had a soft spot for Archie because he has a lot of growth through things. When the main girl, Bridget, challenges him on the kissing thing and how it makes his kisses feel less genuine, less special when he's shared it with so many other girls. And he's like, oh yeah, I can absolutely see that. And so he has this moment of regret and realization, and I love that because that was really the only thing that irked me about him. But then he's Archie, he's doing all his darndest to correct his ways and win over Bridget. Unfortunately, Bridget does stick to her guns a little much, and it kind of brings the dampener on the endings. Unfortunately, the ending did dampen the entire experience a little bit. I still gave it a 4 stars, but that ending, man, it irritated me so much. But the rest of it, I really liked Archie and his little mistakes and that sort of thing. So, yeah, that was a 4 stars for that one. Which brings us to an improper scheme, in which we have the sister of Bridget, Violet, and she is now old enough to do her season. And so she enters this season intent on finding a man. She's all about romance and, titles and that sort of thing. But her sister is pregnant, and so her brother-in-law, Archie, is like, well, hey, Henry, and Henry is a friend of theirs, can you just keep an eye, make sure nobody takes advantage of her? And Henry is like, okay, because his own sister is part of the social world. She's also trying to find a husband, or is she? Anyway, that's a whole other thing. Henry is very interested in Violet and kind of attracted, but also he's focused on getting his sister married. And in fact, he says something to Violet that pretty much says, I am not on the cards for you, so please do not put me on your list. And meanwhile, Violet, she never actually pursues a man. She and the sister of Henry become friends, and they are very unwise. And you don't realize how unwise they are until near the end, where everything explodes and you're like, oh, thank you for making me hate the main character. I didn't know she was this bad. The few moments you see this certain plot line taking place early in the book, it's not that bad. But then you realize how bad it's gotten, and you're like, oh, Violet, you dumb girl. But then Henry, who I liked, he was a little insomnia, very tired boy, and so I was supporting him, and then he also makes a giant mistake, a true decision. And it's just all these things that you're meant to care about each other, and yet you're doing things that actively hurt each other. I just don't understand that in books where they're meant to be in love, but then they start being cruel. I know people lash out and can hurt each other, but this is a cruelty factor. And I was like, what the heck? There may be an accident, somebody cares for the other person, but nothing is resolved. And then the ending again, why is it always the ending just zapped the enjoyment? It was like, zip, let me just zip that enjoyment you were having. And unfortunately, when it is near the end of the book that the enjoyment is zapped, you are then left kind of flat for the ending. You're like, oh, okay. So I gave this book a 3 stars because I liked Henry and Violet for most of the book. And then you realize what Violet has been doing, and it's horrific. And then Henry lashes out and does it's something equally, if not more horrific. No, probably not more, equally. I don't know, I like Audra Wells' writing, but her endings need some work. This is meant to be a goofy, fun time, and I'm just left like this. What the heck am I reading? Which brings us to the finale, the final one, which is an Improper Proposal, where we follow the sister of Henry, Louisa, and we also follow the Duke, which we met very early in the series. He is Robert the Duke, and he's very bland man. Anyway, so the bland man Duke, He's kind of intrigued, but will not let on, definitely not, by Louisa. And so he offers this proposal, a marriage arrangement. They are not in love, it's not a love marriage, they are just, for the convenience of it, getting married. So that Louisa can help him in societal moments, and he can give her money, pretty much. And she's like, I don't really need money, but at the same time, I'm getting older and there are no prospects on the future. And since I do not actually want love, this is perfect because I will never love the Duke and the Duke will never love me. So this is perfect. I can enter this marriage with no things. I would hate to feel love. I do not want to feel love. Louisa's whole thing is that she saw the way her mother was like distraught over her father's death. And now she wants none of it because she's like, I do not want to feel that hurt. Like, what if I get destroyed so horribly that I also take after my mother and just cannot function? Which her mother does function, but she is very sad at the same time, which only makes sense because her husband's dead. But Louisa is set against this happening. Meanwhile, Robert, of course, realizes that, wow, I actually don't want that to happen. I don't want to die and my wife to be like, oh, well, I guess he's dead now. Because he sees something and he's like, how can somebody be so uncaring? And then he's like, but if I died, would she be sad? Would Louisa be sad? And he's like, well, probably not because I'm a jerk. So he does all this chasing, all this correcting of himself because he doesn't know why she doesn't want love. But she won't explain it. She'll be like, I really want to get to know you, Robert. What makes you tick? What makes you who you are? I want to get to know you, Robert. But also, you cannot know anything about me, Robert. Get away from me, Robert. You do not deserve any of my inner secrets. But tell me all of yours, please. So I admit I skipped some of the book because I just could not stay. Like, I saw it, where it was going. He was going to fall head over heels for her. She was going to be in love, but also, like, I don't want to be in love. And so they were going to pretty much be together, have all the kisses, have all those sweet moments, and then she'd freak out and say, I can't be in love. And he'd be like, I want to enter a loving, like, transition this from an arranged, very strict marriage into a loving relationship. And she'd be like, no. Spoilers, that is exactly what happened. And tons of other stuff go down. And it was just, I felt so sad for Robert because I was cheering for Robert. Robert was, again, like Archie, probably my favorite menfolk of the series. Like, the menfolk in this series are great. The women, not so much, other than the first bloke was just infuriating, and Henry made mistakes, unfortunately, and that destroyed him in my assessment. And so the ending fell flat again because now, instead of me wanting the man to grovel, I wanted Louisa to grovel, and she didn't because Robert was just so in love. He's like, oh, thank goodness I got my wife back. Where was the grovel? I wanted to grovel. I should have known when I found out that that was her reasoning that I wouldn't like the book, because I hate when they're like, this thing happened to this person and they crashed and burned, so, like, I'm never going to love again. When clearly they do love. They love their friends, they love their, like, siblings, their family. They're going to get hurt. That fear of, I'm never going to love because I'm going to be fear of losing, but then when you do fall in love, you're like, oh, let me just break my own heart and this man's heart because I don't want to fall in love even though you are in love. So I said at the beginning of this video that I wasn't going to rant and rave, but I feel like because I don't have a vlog about this, I need to get my feelings out, and so now I'm anxious and warm, and you're getting the rant. So yeah, it was a 3 stars as well, because I loved Robert, but the plot, Louisa, why? So that's a wrap on the Audra Wells. So I do have a backlog, which I will try her other books to see if the endings don't irritate me quite as much. But unfortunately, the endings are a big part. It's important in a book. The endings have to be good. Otherwise, it kind of detracts from, because it is the last thing you see of the book. So that's usually what stands forefront in your mind. So if it's not so great, the book in its entirety becomes... But anyway, that's my opinion. Other people love the books and adore the books. So maybe I'm just not a drama lover. And I want people to grovel. If you've been watching my videos, you're no stranger to I love a good grovel. So that brings us to a close on my October reading wrap-up. I said I wouldn't rant, ended up ranting. It's just the way it is. This video is probably an hour long. And you're welcome. You're welcome. So if you made it this far and you care to comment below, leave a little wolf emoji. Just a little wolfie. So for now, that's a wrap. Thank you for watching the video, and I shall see you in the next one. Until then, peace.
226끝